Hello everyone, my name is Amanda Broughton and I am an occupational therapy student at the American Stroke Foundation. In this video, we will cover some basic information about sleep hygiene. Sleep is an important factor in maintaining brain health, and as a survivor of stroke, it is especially important to make sure you are taking steps to help improve the quality of sleep you are getting. One way you can do that is by incorporating some of the sleep hygiene habits we will be talking about in this video into your daily and nightly routines. We will cover 7 different habits, some of which may seem more feasible than others. I myself have a long history of sleep issues, so I know from my own experience that changing routines and habits that have been a part of our lives for a long time is really not an easy task. So with that said, I ask that you keep an open mind while watching the remainder of this video. My hope is that by the end of the video, you will have an idea of at least one thing you can do to change about your sleep hygiene habits to help improve the quality of sleep you are getting. First, it is recommended that you go to bed and wake up at consistent times every day, including weekends. This is to help regulate your sleep-wake cycles. The more consistent you can be on a regular basis, the easier it will be to go to sleep and especially to wake up. When setting these times, you want to make sure you are allowing for at least 7 hours of sleep, as adults need between 7 and 9 hours of sleep each night. If this is something you decide to tackle, you may want to start making gradual adjustments until you get your ideal sleep and wake times. That may make it easier to stick to in the long run. Second on the list is to establish a bedtime routine. Being deliberate and consistent in how you prepare for bed can help your body know it's time for bed as well. Many people like to add in a form of stress relief or meditation before bed as part of their routine. Your routine could also include listening to soft music, some light stretching, reading, or doing some relaxation exercises. This habit can easily be paired with going to bed at a consistent time as well. For example, if you are aiming to go to bed at 10 p.m. every night, and you know you want to give yourself about 30 minutes for your bedtime routine, then you should start that routine at about 9:30 each night. Third on the list is to use your bed for sleep, sickness, and sex only. This means avoiding your bed for recreational activities like reading or watching TV, as these activities can confuse your body as to whether you should be awake or asleep when you are laying in bed. This one is especially important if you typically have trouble sleeping. One tip I've received previously is that if you have a partner who has to have the TV on while sleeping, and this is non-negotiable, you can try using earplugs and an eye mask to block out the light and sound. Using your bed for sleep, sickness, and sex only also means that if after about 20 minutes or so of going to bed and you haven't fallen asleep, it is recommended that you avoid laying in bed until you do eventually fall asleep. Instead, try getting up and stretching or reading or doing something else calming in low light before going back to bed and trying to fall asleep again. This next guideline can be easy to dismiss, but the things we eat and drink affect the way our bodies operate, so it's important to pay attention to what you're putting in your body. More specifically, it's recommended to avoid caffeine within 6 hours of bedtime, stimulants such as nicotine and sugar prior to bed, and alcohol late in the evening. Alcohol can certainly make it easier for you to fall asleep, but it can also interfere with you getting good, restorative sleep throughout the night. Before moving on, let's address why it's important to stop taking in caffeine at least 6 hours before you go to bed. Caffeine affects everyone differently, so for some people who are more sensitive to the effects of caffeine, The reasons behind this guideline are obvious. For others, like myself, who can drink copious amounts of caffeine and have no trouble falling asleep regardless of how much time has passed by, this guideline can be very easy to dismiss. The reason this is still important for everyone, no matter how much caffeine appears to affect you or not, is because caffeine stays in the body for many hours before losing its effect. It's generally believed that caffeine has an active effect in the body for about 6 hours, but the specific amount of time is varied from person to person and can often be longer. So, while some people can go to sleep not long after drinking a cup of coffee, the caffeine is still active in the background. This can interfere with the quality of sleep you get. For me personally, there appears to be a connection between drinking a caffeinated beverage too late and waking up in the middle of the night unable to fall back asleep. So what about you? I encourage you to pay attention to your caffeine consumption and the quality of sleep you are getting. Next on the list of good sleep hygiene habits is to exercise daily. Just make sure not to exercise within 3 hours of bedtime. Daily exercise is important for many reasons, including getting quality sleep. When you exercise, you are using some of your body's energy and creating a natural need for restorative sleep. Engaging in exercise does release endorphins, however, which tends to increase the activity in your brain. This is why it is important to avoid exercising within 3 hours of bedtime. Sixth, make sure you are taking your medication properly. Double check your prescription labels. Are you taking your medication as prescribed? Another important part of this is knowing whether you should be taking your medication at night or in the morning. Some medications can make your brain more active, and others can make your brain less active. Check with your doctor or pharmacist to make sure you are taking your medications at the right time of day. Last on this list is to block blue light from electronics within 3 hours of bedtime. Often, we hear that you should stop using electronic devices before bed, but for many, this is not realistic. Instead, you can do the next best thing, which is to use blue light filters on your electronic devices. This will be discussed in more detail, but before doing so, I also wanted to note that it is important to make it a priority to get exposure to light during the day, especially sunlight. Exposure to sunlight helps remind our brain and body that it's time to be awake, which is another way our sleep and wake cycles are regulated. Many electronic devices have settings that enable a blue light filter to automatically turn on and off. You should be able to access them by entering the word night into the search bar in your settings. You can see here that when I did this, the setting for night light came up upon typing the word night into the search bar. Let's see what that does. Clicking on the night light option pulls up all of the blue light filter options. Under the heading Schedule, you can see I have it set to turn on at 9 p.m. every night and turn off at 7 a.m. every morning. When the filter turns on, the blue light is blocked from being displayed and everything is shown with a slight orange tint. That example was from my Windows computer. Similarly, searching for night in the settings on my phone pulled up very similar settings, also titled Night Light. On iPhones and iPads, these settings are called Night Shift. Lastly, just so you can get an idea of what the blue light filter does, let's compare this screenshot of the American Stroke Foundation homepage without a blue light filter to this screenshot of the American Stroke Foundation homepage with the blue light filter turned on. You can see here this version has a slightly more orange tint than the first version. Many, if not all, of the sleep hygiene habits discussed in this video come down to being consistent. Ideally, it's best to try to go to sleep at the same time every night and wake up at the same time every morning, ensuring that you get at least 7 hours of sleep. Establishing a bedtime routine can also be quite beneficial. Additionally, it's important to remember to to only use your bed for sleeping, sickness, and sex. Try to make sure that recreational activities, such as reading or watching TV, are done elsewhere in your house. Blocking blue light or eliminating usage of electronic devices altogether prior to going to bed is also very important for regulation of your sleep-wake cycles. Avoiding foods and drinks that will impact your sleep is also important. Finally, be sure to exercise daily and take your medications as prescribed. Thank you for watching this video about sleep hygiene. Here are my references in case you would like to learn more.